So understanding the fight-flight response is crucial if you're exploring recovery from ME, CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia and related conditions. The fight-flight response explains some of the symptoms that you may be experiencing. So welcome to this live training. If you're watching live, just say hi in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just put #replay. So before I had ME, CFS, I didn't fully appreciate how being in a persistent state of stress would contribute to me becoming unwell. And when I first had ME, CFS, I had no idea how often I was activating the fight-flight response, how this was hindering my recovery, and I didn't really know how to effectively switch off the fight-flight response. So once I understood that I was generating stress a lot of the time, activating the fight-flight response, and once I understood the factors that were contributing to me generating stress, this helped me interrupt those stress responses and create new responses, and that in turn supported my body's healing from ME, CFS and fibromyalgia. So responses to danger include fight, flight, freeze, fawn and flop. Okay, you might recognize that you gravitate towards certain of those responses. In this session, I'm going to talk about fight-flight response, but these are all survival strategies. So the danger can actually be real, you know, for instance, if someone is faced with a hungry tiger who wants to eat them, or it can be a perceived threat. So for example, you know, if you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you up, you might perceive that as a threat. You know, it might be a threat to your ego, but it might generate a stress response. You know, if I'm in traffic, someone cuts me up, cuts in the past, actually, I would have got annoyed because somehow I was making that experience something to do with me. And actually what I learned over time, that behavior of that other person was information about them. Maybe they were just stressed and I didn't need to take it as a personal affront. Okay, so there are a number of things, number of situations in which we can perceive that we're in some kind of threat. I talk about this equation, you might have seen it before, E plus R equals O, where E is the event, R is the response. How we respond to an event depends on how we interpret that experience. Okay, so I say, you know, if someone is being rude to me on Twitter, then that might activate my fight-flight response. If I think or believe that I've done something wrong, or if my default response to criticism is that I must be bad or wrong. And at one point that was the case. That was if someone was critical, because that had been my experience for a long time, that when someone criticized me, I assumed I was bad or wrong. That became a default response. Okay. So in this video, as I say, I'm going to talk about 16 signs that your body is in fight or flight. The fight-flight response is a natural physiological reaction that occurs in response to danger. As I say, that danger may be real or perceived. And the fight-flight response prepares the body to either confront the threat, fight, or to flee from it, flight. It is supposed to be a short-term response designed to help us deal with the threat and keep us safe. So for instance, if your ancestors were faced with a saber-toothed tiger or invaders, changes would happen in your body to help you deal with that situation. So here's some of the common signs and symptoms of being in fight-flight mode. I'd be interested to know which ones you can relate to. Okay, so I'll go to the iPad and we'll just make kind of note of these things. So one is that we get an increased heart rate. Actually, that's a bit thick. Let's just change that. Okay, increase heart rate. Okay, so the heart rate increases to pump more blood to the muscles and vital organs, preparing it for action. Second effect is that you get increased blood pressure. Okay, and the blood pressure rises to ensure that the blood is delivered to essential organs and muscles. Third thing, you get an increase in energy, because obviously in that situation you need energy to help you either fight or flight. So the body releases stored energy in the form of glucose and adrenaline to provide a burst of energy for action. Okay, and the next thing is we get an increase in our breathing, okay, rate. Oops. Okay, so breathing becomes faster and more shallow to allow oxygenation of the blood and provide more oxygen to the muscles. Fifth thing is that we get an increase in muscle tension. Okay. Oops, spelt muscle wrong. Okay. So the muscles tense up in preparation for physical action. And this can lead to a sensation of tightness or stiffness in various parts of the body. And this contributes to your raised heart rate. So just from these that I've described, these five so far, are there ones that you recognise? Oh yeah, that kind of explains some of my sensations. I call them sensations rather than symptoms because the word sensations is less emotive. But certainly one of the things I noticed is that my muscles would be tight, especially in my neck and shoulders. And sometimes I'd get cramps, particularly in my calf for some reason. Next thing is that we get increase in feelings of anxiety and fear. And if you think about it, you know, if your heart's beating fast, your blood pressure's up, you know, that's going to actually put your body in a physiological state, okay, where you experience anxiety. Nervousness are common when the body is in that fight-flight mode. And you might feel on edge, might have a sense of restlessness, edginess, irritability due to that heightened state of arousal. And, you know, when we're in that state of stress, we can respond in quite emotional ways, for instance, saying things that we might later regret. Okay, so the next thing, you might experience shaking and trembling. Okay, so fine motor skills can be affected, leading to shaking or trembling in hands and limbs. And the next thing that happens that helps us deal with these challenging situations is that our reflexes are heightened. Okay, our reflexes become faster as the body prepares for rapid responses to potential danger. Next one I found very interesting when I read about this is that our pupils become dilated. This makes our sight more sensitive. Okay, the pupils dilate to allow more light in, which enhances visual awareness and sensitivity. So one of the consequences of being in fight or flight is sensitivity to light. Okay, is that something you experienced? Certainly that was something when I had ME/CFS. I was sensitive to light. It's kind of, I've got bright lights facing me right now, and they're quite bright, but they don't bother me too much. But when I had ME/CFS, there's no way I could have these lights in front of me. Okay. We also experience kind of tunnel vision. Okay. Our peripheral vision narrows because we're focusing on the perceived immediate threat or danger. Okay, and this can make you less aware of your surroundings. Okay, and we can also experience impaired decision making. Okay, our rational thinking part of the brain is kind of suppressed, and the brain prioritizes survival over long-term thinking, long-term planning. Next thing is difficulty concentrating. Okay. The focus narrows, as I've said. We're focusing on the perceived threat, and it makes it more difficult to concentrate on other tasks. Number 13 is increase in sweating. I remember one time I was delivering a training, and I was feeling very stressed, and water was just dripping off my face. Okay. It was fortunately online rather than face-to-face, so it was a little bit more difficult to notice, but I really was aware of that change in my sweating. And that's, your body is, this is helping the body regulate temperature, okay, during the physical exertion. This explains why you might have that experience of feeling sweaty, having sweaty palms. I remember a client saying, you know, she felt like her back was sweating, and no one else in the group was even aware of that, but she was very aware of that. Okay, and the next thing is heightened sensitivity. Okay, so we've already talked about sensitivity to light. The senses become more acute, making you alert to potential threats. So we've mentioned the effect on vision. Also, our hearing is more acute, and our sense of smell, because this can be helpful in threatening situations. Okay, Lynn says hi, sorry I'm late. No problem, Lynn, nice to have you join us. Again, consider, you know, to what extent has that been an issue for you, that you have sensitivity to sound or sensitivity to smells. When I had ME, as well as being sensitive to light, I was very particularly excuse me, sensitive to smells. You know, if my daughter sprayed hairspray at the other end of the house excuse me, in a very short period of time I could smell it, and which was amazing in itself, that the spray travelled through literally from one end of the house very quickly. Okay, but I could smell it literally in less than a second. Okay, so what about you? Which do you recognise? So Lynn says all of the above: light, sounds, smells as well. Very sensitive to. Yeah. Okay. And it can also affect our digestion. Oops. So when we're in that fight-flight response, the digestion slows down. Blood is diverted away from the digestive system to the muscles and the brain. Okay, I am going to be uploading a video where I talk about some of these impacts that are very relevant to people with ME. So I'm talking about cognitive function, energy, energy production, sleep, immune function, and digestion. Okay, so if you'd like to watch that video where I talk about the 3 things that I believe can help you, pop the word 3 in the chat, and as soon as it's posted I'll share the link with you. So Dorothy says all. My partner says I have the smell of a bloodhound. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because this kind of explains why that's happening. And the 16th thing is dry mouth. Okay. So saliva production may decrease, leading to that dry mouth sensation. So, as I say, I'd be really interested to hear from you. What is your experience? Which of those can you relate to? You might just put numbers in the chat from 1 to 16. So 1 is heart rate increase, 2 increase in blood pressure, 3 increase in energy, because that's going to help us deal with the threat. Increase in breathing, increase in muscle tension, okay, increase in anxiety and fear, shaking or trembling, quick reflexes, dilated pupils, tunnel vision, impaired decision making, difficulty concentrating, sweating, heightened sensitivity, digestive changes, and dry mouth. As I mentioned, it's important to note that the fight-flight response is a natural adaptive reaction to immediate or perceived danger, and it is supposed to be a short-term response. The problem is that in modern life we can activate the fight-flight response more frequently than is strictly necessary. You know, we're in situations that are not life-threatening, okay, but our perception suggests to us that we are under threat. So, for instance, I'd like you to consider what are the things that activate your fight-flight response, which aren't actually real threats. For me, when I had ME/CFS, experiencing symptoms resulted in me activating the fight-flight response. There was a time where even someone disagreeing with me would put me in a state of fight-flight. Certainly someone being judgmental or dismissive. Some of us with ME/CFS, not necessarily all of us, but some of us have developed highly sensitive personalities. So we are sensitive. We learn to care too much about what other people think. I used to care too much about what other people think, and that resulted in a lot of stress. And I have kind of trained myself not to completely not care, but to care less about what people think, and also to recognise when other people are behaving badly and their behaviour is nothing to do with me, but more to do with their psychology, okay, and their wounds. Okay, when I see things in that light, then I'm less affected by them. So as I say, prolonged chronic activation of this response can lead to negative health effects. Okay, having suppressed digestion can cause problems like not digesting food properly, which means that nutrients aren't getting to the cells, and the mitochondria, your energy batteries, are not able to produce energy for your cells. Okay, they're not getting the building blocks to create energy. If we've got elevated glucose and adrenaline circulating in the bloodstream and it's not being utilized, that in turn can cause problems. Having, elevated blood sugar is not good. It causes inflammation. If the body's releasing energy but we're not, what happens at the same time is it suppresses energy production, then we're using up energy and we're not replacing it. Consequence of that is we're going to run out of energy. Okay, and the sleep function is suppressed, because if our brain perceives that there is a threat around, then our caveman, cavewoman ancestors would have slept lightly. They would have been on alert for any sounds that might be a prowling saber-toothed tiger. Okay, So techniques such as deep breathing, meditation, mindfulness, progressive muscle relaxation, techniques to help us connect to the body can counteract the physiological effects of the fight-flight response and promote a sense of calm and relaxation. I've made a few videos on this recently, so check out this video, which you'll find in the live section if you're watching on YouTube, from Fears to Trust, where I share some techniques for connecting to your body which can help generate feelings of calm and safety. And I also did a video on ME CFS sensitivity without reactivity. Okay, so you can have, being a sensitive person has some good aspects to it, but obviously being triggered by other people a lot of the time is less good for us. Okay, so check that out. And so I see, yeah, Canon Fodderman's also said he would like to see the video. So as soon as I've posted, I will share the link with you. Okay, so there are a few free resources for you, and I've got lots of videos. If you check out my playlist on YouTube, then you'll see there's playlists on various topics, dealing with dips, dealing with anxiety. So check those out. If you want more help, then I do run a training program called Building Resilience. It's accessible as an online 12-week program, 12-week group course, or you can do the training one-to-one, which includes one-to-one coaching. Okay, so if you're interested, I'm happy to have a discovery call with you to check that it is right for you. So if you'd like to know more about that, then comment discovery in the chat. I'll send you the link where you can find out more about the course. And if you decide you'd like to have a chat, you can click the link and book a session. So if you are watching live, you know, I'd love to just hear any comments. What is your takeaway from this session? Okay, do leave a like, do leave a comment, do share if you found it useful, do follow, subscribe, so you get notified when there is more content. But for now, let's finish with a brief relaxation. If you'd like that, just pop a yes in the chat. I discovered that eating nuts just before I go live is not a good idea. That's why I was coughing. I think some went down the wrong way. So yeah, if you'd like a brief relaxation, just comment yes in the chat. Okay, so we've got a yes. So I invite you just to close your eyes. Obviously, only close your eyes if it's safe to do so. And I'd invite you to just make yourself comfortable. And as you make yourself comfortable, I invite you to just breathe in through your nose, as long as that's comfortable. Breathing into your belly and breathing out of your nose. As you breathe in and out, I invite you to just let the out breath be a little bit longer than the in breath. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is our healing, rest and digest part of the parasympathetic nervous system. As you breathe in and out, you might imagine your breath as a colour. As you breathe in, breathing in that colour, see it going into your lungs, oxygenating the blood, which now circulates around the body, bringing nourishment to your cells, so your cells can function properly. As you breathe in and out, Just imagine all those cells in your body receiving the nutrients from your food, the oxygen, which are the building blocks your mitochondria need to form energy, helping your body function in the way it's supposed to. Consider that taking a moment from time to time just to pause, to relax, to slow down. It's just putting your body in that rest and digest state. Learning how to view situations in resourceful ways can help change our experience. So, for example, when I posted a video and someone made a comment that was pretty aggressive, my old default response was to go into that fight, flight, freeze response. Sometimes I'd withdraw, run away. Sometimes I would just freeze. But actually, as I understood that there are ways of interacting with people that are respectful, these are the ways I choose to interact with people. I might not always achieve that, but if I slip up, I'm open to putting my hand up, recognizing and acknowledging my error, apologizing. And so if someone is responding to me in a way that I find it's not really how I choose to respond to someone, even if I disagree with them, I can recognize that it tells me something about them. And so rather than wanting to get into a fight or running away, I can just recognize that how that person is behaving is nothing to do with me. And that can be really liberating. So I invite you just to consider what you can learn from watching this video today. As I say, I've mentioned some other free resources that you can check out to help you shift your state from being in fight or flight to activating the rest and digest part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So I invite you to check out those free resources. But for now, I'll say thanks for watching. Keep going, you've got this. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.